Good afternoon, buenas tardes. Bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde. We're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we're ready to bring on the ladies, Nicte and Maddie, to join us today for our show. Hola, Nicte.
Hola, hola, hola. Hola, mujeres.
Nah.
Good. How are you? ¿Cómo están?
I'm good. I'm good because the weather is nice here finally,
Yes.
and hopefully it'll be consistent. Because it
Yes.
was like 80 and then for like 2-3 days, and then it was in the 40s for like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Just got some warm days. Ours has been like 30s, which has been crazy. Yeah. Not normal.
Yeah. I always have to open I could look at the weather, but I do actually open the door and just see what it feels like as well. But yeah.
Oh, you're one of them black mothers that sticks their arms out to see how the weather is doing.
Yeah. Like, even though I saw it on my phone, yeah, I'll do that just to double check. Nick, tell me about your week and your gratitude. What are you thankful for?
Well, my gratitude is that, so my son was sick last week. Estaba enfermo la semana pasada, antepasada. And I've been, my immune system is like a hit or a miss. And so sometimes if he gets sick, I get sick. So thankfully this time I did get a little sick, but thanks to los remedios caseros Latinos from, our families, I had a lot of that, a lot of tea, a lot of ginger, a lot of, oh my gosh, se me olvidó cómo se llama.
Turmeric?
A spice that's like cumin. Cumin's really good too, yeah. And I also added ginger, like all sorts of stuff. And I'm a little stuffy still, but I did not get sick like my son, which was really good. So I am very thankful for that. Thankful for health.
For no sickness. Good job.
Yes.
Good. Maddie, ¿y tú?
Again, funny because every time I start, I'm like, it's been a difficult week. So it's been a difficult week, but we made it. No, it was interesting. It was busy as always, but very thankful that was able to pull through. We were down like 4 people at the branch. Like usually we're down like 1 person, 2 people. We were down 4 people, 2 at the teller line, 2 at the front desk. So needless to say, it was, craziness in there, but, we pulled through. And then this weekend we had a poetry festival here in Norfolk in the venue on 35th Street. And I'm part of the committee of the festival. So, we pulled a 2-day festival and it was amazing. It was great to see, the local talent. And I was able to feature together with my teammate, Stephanie Lask. And we were able to practice group poems and, kind of show what we have been working on. And, everybody loved it. But most of all, I learned a lesson that, or not learned, but kind of was reminded that, sometimes, like I was looking at pictures that were taken from the festival and, I'm like looking at myself and I'm like, ooh, you should have worn those pants. Maybe the shirt should have been tucked different. You should have fixed your belt. You should have, like I'm picking and nitpicking at the pictures and looking at myself. And then, had a conversation with one of my girlfriends, and then I was like, you know what? I look great. I felt great. The performance went great, and I am thankful for how far I have come. So it was one of those moments where, you're looking at everything bad that's going wrong or what could be better instead of, man, look how far I've come and, how great I look. So I had one of those moments. So I'm thankful for that.
That's good. I like it. For me, it was a lot. I had some co-parenting struggles, but we came to a resolution, and it was just nice to just kind of bring it back to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I'm thankful that Dad was open, to have dialogue and to make things right. So I'm thankful for that. That the conversations worked out. So So today, we're gonna switch roles a little bit. So Nikta and Maddie are gonna ask me a couple of questions today. We did a series before. We haven't had it with Maddie yet, but I know we interviewed Marlene before. I think when she was on the show, and then we
Mhm.
interviewed Nikta one time just to kind of get insight on some of our, our hosts, co-hosts. So today is my turn. So
We are
go ahead,
excited.
Nick.
We are so excited.
I'm ready.
I think that one of the things that, first of all, we love that, you took the lead and invited us into the show. So I think this is very exciting for Maddie and us to be able to feature you and get to have more people know about what you do on day to day. So I think we are just so excited to ask questions. First of all, I love the red lipstick.
Mm.
Bold, beautiful. I love it. I love it, love it. So I want to go ahead and start with a question about. I know you've talked about this in the beginning of the show. What really led you to the role that you are in the business that you do, and kind of take us maybe through what moment in your life you knew that you were meant to be in the place that you are, or to seek to start working towards that. So, dinos en qué momento en tu vida tú te diste cuenta que ya tenías como esa llamada a tu destino de lo que estás haciendo ahora con tu negocio, y qué fue lo que te atrayó para empezar a trabajar, a llegar a la meta que has llegado hoy.
Mm. Thank you. That is such a big question. Um, but I think, like I've said before, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to have a lot of kids because I'm an only child. So I always wanted to have, I don't remember, maybe it was like 9 or 10 kids, something like that. Um, and I always had there has always been entrepreneurs in my family. I didn't know that that's what they were called, but we did have entrepreneurs. So when I was in high school, you know how they do the personality test to see what type of profession you should go into. So mine was directed to being a psychologist, like a child psychologist. And then once I went to college, I ended up getting my degree in business management and marketing. I love marketing. I love uh, especially for small businesses. I love for someone to have the idea and for me to really embrace them and help them going in the direction that they want to go to. It took me a while to finish my college degree because I did everything backwards. I had a baby first, and then I bought a house, and then I got married, and then I had another baby. Um, so in that whole process, even during my marriage, I I've always worked from home. I never really worked for somebody else as I became an adult. So I worked from home for another company, but I didn't have to clock in, right? And I did scheduling for that company. It was a local supermarket, and I hated it. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I was there for about 2 years or so. Eventually, we all got laid off because the company closed. So then, shortly after that, I started tutoring. My husband and I were tutoring, and I was in charge of scheduling. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot do this. This is horrible. But I realized that I had to learn how scheduling was not done so that I could do it the proper way when I was able to do it for my own business. And then later on, just the business grew. And I realized there was a pivotal moment in my life that I was like, wow, like I only had 2 children, but I get to um, be a part of the community and raise all these other children because I have children that have been with me. I have this one girl, her name is Azaya, and she's been with me since she was like 3 years old, and now she's in seventh grade. So I'm still able to. Just partake in these people's lives, and they entrust me with their children. I even had one of my students. She's getting ready to go to prom, and she sent me pictures of her two potential dresses because she wants me to give her my advice, right? I think it's that, just realizing at some point, I can't pinpoint specifically when, but I knew that I was in my elements because I'm around children and I love children, and because I love entrepreneurship. And so I do my own entrepreneurship for myself. And then I'm also able to help other people as well. And I get to build relationships with the family. So I always kind of tend to find out what else they do outside of parenting these children. And I actually do have a couple of clients where I do a little bit of marketing for them at the beginning stage of it.
That's so awesome. I love how you were saying how, and I don't think there's a way of saying we do things backwards. I think you went down the path that you were meant to go
Mm-hmm.
through and go through the experiences, because all those things, and I know how you said you did not like the scheduling part, que eso se te fastidiaba, and it was just like, but it's really amazing how that became such a beneficial thing for what you do now too, because you need to know how to do that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like those experiences that we don't realize really empower us down the line. So I really loved how you were sharing the learning lessons along the way. And I thought it was pretty awesome because I know you were 21, I think, when you bought your own house,
Mm-hmm.
right? Were you? Yeah, you were very young, which a
Yeah.
lot of us have, not been able to make that. So I think that you went down an incredible trajectory, and how you were able to bring in marketing into the education system like that you're building. I know a lot of educators that don't know at all how to kind of combine those two.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really powerful that you do that and you help other clients. So eso estuvo
Mm-hmm.
buenísimo. Maddie,
Yeah,
do you
I
have
love
any?
it. Like I get high when I like help people. I'm
Love that.
serious. Like I just love it.
You
I
could
feel amazing.
tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's awesome. Like one of the things that I would probably say that let me see, attracted is not the word, but that made me gravitate towards Viviana. Viviana is very mellow, and she's in a room and she doesn't necessarily like, she's not, she's very observant, and she has said that before. She kind of like looks at people and observes people, but there's just this strong presence about you anytime that that we are in your presence, and I think that comes across the screen too when we do look at you. So you are a very strong woman, and you can tell even without you saying a word. So as a woman, from woman to woman, I do appreciate that and admire that very much about you. You talk about your accomplishments and how hard it has been to kind of get to where you're at, but you've been working at it since you were very, very young. So kind of like, what would you say are some of the things that you have accomplished that makes you the most proud? And then maybe tell us something that may not necessarily be on your resume.
Hmm. Wow. Well, first let me say thank you about my whatever my aura, whatever you guys see, because I don't see it. I really don't. I'm like 5 feet. I'm really 4'11", but I tell everybody I'm 5 feet, so I'm short. And my mom has really told me there's this presence about me when I walk into a room, and I don't see it, and I stay humble to it because um, I think it's the right thing to do, and I don't see what you guys see, right? I think it's because my heart is in the right place when even when I invited you guys to be on the show, or even, the guests that we have, or people that I just come in contact with, I do it genuinely, never trying to get anything out of it. So I think that that's why, and I hope that I will forever stay humble, because I think if I'm not humble, then it's not going to work, and I'm not going to be able to truly help people. So I thank you. I thank you for that. In reference to um, something that's not in my resume, um, well, let me tell you first. One thing that I'm really proud of is so I went to college right out of high school, but I hated it. I had no guidance. I was just kind of like doing it on my own, and I kept on taking this 8 o'clock history class, and I have no idea why. I did it like 2 semesters in a row, and I kept on dropping out of the class. So I went to school in New Jersey, and then it took me a while. I didn't finish my bachelor's degree till my youngest son was born. He's 12 now. And I remember it was finals, and I was breastfeeding Joel. So I remember breastfeeding him and writing my final paper at the same time. So that's something that I'm proud of. And I think that is never too late to go back and finish whatever your desires are. It doesn't have to be school, but just your desires. And I love education. And I have a lot of informal education because I like to study. I don't do it on a daily basis. That's one of the things that I want to kind of start doing to make sure that I study every day, if, whether it's something, so I can kind of gain more knowledge. But that's one of the moments that kind of sticks out in my brain that a lot of people don't know, and it makes me feel proud. And then in reference to something that's not on my resume, probably what Nikte said about the fact that I started early in reference to home ownership. I was 21, I believe. I was 21, and I was here in Virginia, and I was here by myself. And I was only able to do it because my mom was like my number one cheerleader. um, she was like, you could do it. Like, she wasn't working at the time, and she started working. So she said, if you ever need something, like, I got you. So I think a lot of people can't say that about themselves, that they were, in their early 20s, being able to buy a house. And then eventually I sold that house. I was debt free. And then I owned that. So I've owned a couple of property after that. But I think that's something that's unique, but doable.
I love that you said that, and I think that that's so encouraging for young women or any woman at any age listening, de poder ver que uno, si que uno quiere, lucha, trabaja duro, and so you're very much a testament of that. And even through like the hardships that you've been through, you've still pushed through. And I loved how you share that story that you were breastfeeding and submitting your final, because
Mhm.
a lot of women can't do that, and you don't hear those stories either. I think that that's a
Mhm.
really powerful story that you shared with us. um, what would you say, because I know I love that Maddie mentioned how you're so calm and collected, but in situations, especially with what you deal with parents, or trying to help parents understand certain things when their children are not getting, how can what are suggestions that you might have noticed and strategies of keeping calm and collected and helping people kind of diffuse the situation, because you are pretty good about that. When things get heated
Mhm.
up, you stay tranquila and you're able to. So, is there any suggestions that you can share with the rest of us?
I listen. I listen. I let other people talk. Even in like heated arguments at times, that which I could just count in my hand how many I've had of those. I always give the other, if it gets like that, I allow the other person, because if I'm talking and I continue to get interrupted, then that means that you're not listening to what I'm saying. So then I allow you to talk, and it requires a lot of patience, because the inside of you is like boiling, right? Because you want to battle what the person just said. But it's really listening. Sometimes I've learned to like even take notes so I don't forget to kind of go back to touch on that particular point. And it just depends, because I may not have access, but I'll have mental notes if it's like a personal argument versus like a business argument, disagreement. But I've learned to become a really good listener. And then when it's my turn to talk, then I will say, okay, so give me the opportunity to talk, because I've given you the opportunity to talk. So usually when you say that to someone, they're usually open to it. And I've tried it with adults and with my children as well. And then if they interrupt me, I stop. That's my technique. I'm never gonna. I will interrupt, but most of the times I'll just pause.
I love that. I have heard that pausing strategy, and also that if you're in the middle of an argument and the other person like sube la voz, está gritan louder, you tone down your voice, or
Yeah,
even like complete. And I've noticed that that does really diffuse
yeah.
the
And
situation.
sometimes too, this I learned from a friend of mine. She said sometimes, because I'm very non-confrontational, but I've learned to still deal with things. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to address the issues. I just I do it at the right time when it's right for me, I guess. But one of the things that I learned from her was to let's say I'm going to have a conversation with Maddie where it could potentially turn into conflict. I'll say, hey Maddie, like I have these questions or these concerns, but once I'm done talking, like don't respond. Let's touch bases again tomorrow, and then give me a response tomorrow. So sometimes that's one that I've tried in the past and it works, but just depends on the situation. You can't use that all the time.
That's a really good idea, though. It gives people opportunity to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and put their thoughts together because we're not so, you know. And sometimes, like a friend of mine always talks about having like he has like a 24-hour rule. So if somebody's, let's say somebody called him or somebody texts him and they're kind of heated and he needs to return the call, he'll give them 24 hours and then he'll call them like the next day. So it gives them time to kind of settle. Hmm.
That's a good one. Um, we you always talk about your mom and your relationship with your mom, and the little that you have shared with us here. I just love it because I see how much of an integral part of your life she is, and she's always there. She watches every show. So, mom, if you're watching, hola, mommy. So, so I love that. Is there how can I put it, you said that she was very integral in that first step of home ownership for you. um, is there something that you is there anything that you don't talk to your mom about, or that maybe you might hesitate to have that conversation and share with her? And is there something that you tell your mom every day?
Um, It's not something I tell my mom every day. We actually sometimes text each other a lot more than what we talk because she does text, which I love that. But we do see each other every day because she's like my personal assistant at the job. So, like anything that I need, she kind of helps me. So, we have some type of interaction every day. Um, it hasn't always been easy with my mother because I'm an only child. And so she truly like engulfed herself in me. And my mom is very unique and she's very like she wears the pants in the family and she's very strong-willed. So I've learned to use the word strong-willed versus stubborn because but she can be that too. But as I have grown, she has grown too because we share like we follow like the law of attraction and all that other stuff, and we both learn it, we both study it, so we send each other YouTube videos. And my mom is very open. She's very fresh, but she's very strong willed as well. Example, today at the game, she's like the only one pretty much close to the basketball court screaming because my son is playing on one side and my other son's playing the other one. So she's like, defense, hands up, defense. And then there was a point she wanted to go take a picture, and I'm just watching her. And I'm like, you're so intense. Like, you don't have to be so intense all the time. She's like trying all up in my son's like face trying to take a picture. And I'm like, you're the only one doing this. She's like, well, that's who I am and I'm unique and all this other stuff, right? So it's like it's awesome, but she doesn't know how to turn it off sometimes. Because sometimes it's almost like you're doing too much. And I know she's listening. And I told her about herself today, but so this is not a secret. Um, but the same thing that she's so high strong makes her who she is and makes me who I am, at the same time. So even though I hate it at times, but I would rather her be that way than to be the opposite of that. And in reference to, there's a lot of things that I've shared with my mother a lot. Sometimes I may not tell her at the moment when I'm going through something, but eventually I end up telling her. Like she knows my greatest fears. There's times that I might feel anxiety, and I did it about 2 weeks ago, where I was like bidding for like a really large project, and I called her because I was like, "Hey, I need you to get on board with me with the positive energy because A, B, C, D, E is happening. So like, let's get on board." Um, she thinks that I don't tell her everything about my life, but I actually do. Probably not in big detail, but I do tell her. And since my divorce, maybe just being single and dating and stuff like that, maybe I don't share some of those intimate things with her. But outside of that, I don't think that there's anything that I could not tell her.
Yeah, I love the relationship that you guys have. It's very and I've seen it too growing up. Mi tia has always been a big supporter, a big
Hmm.
pusher, a big driver, and I see that. just knowing how she grew up, she was very strong-willed, um, kind of a badass, I think, and not letting anyone tell her no, that she couldn't do it. And I see that in you. Um, but my question is kind of coming from that. You come from a background where we do have strong women in the family. But when you were going through being a mom and finishing school and all that moment, were there times where you had to remind yourself, because that balance is incredibly tough. I don't think there's a such thing as balance. You kind of pick which side of the scale you're going to give more to. But were
Mhm.
there times that you had to remind yourself, if you felt, I can't do this, this is too much? Did you ever feel like that, or were you able just to kind of push through those moments of just driving and
I
being a
think
mom?
I think I just got up. I just woke up and just did whatever I had to do for the day. I think that maybe there were times of like insecurities or thinking to myself like this is too much, right? Like let me do something else. And as entrepreneurs, maybe this happens to a lot of us where you're like, man, let me just get an 8 to 5, because it's so much easier. But then it's just a really quick thought that passes through my brain. Um, but because I at some point it doesn't last more than 24 hours in my brain, like the next day I'm like, all right, let's go, like let's do this. I'm all about like the solutions, and I think I've always been that way. um, as we all have some type of like young people struggles or challenges that we went through, that makes us who we are today. And maybe during those times, maybe for a period of time you can kind of see yourself as being the victim. But I'm very similar to when it comes to my grandmother, because I asked my grandmother if she ever experienced depression, and she said no, I've never experienced that. And I think I feel like I'm like that. I could just I try to not put a lot of energy into like the negative or the possibilities or the to like when you troubleshoot things, I try not to troubleshoot too much, and I just kind of focus on, okay, like what can I do today. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to prioritize, to say, you know what, I didn't clean up the house today. Like, I'm good because I did this other activity. And it's okay that I didn't vacuum today or whatever that may be. I remember, I think when I turned, it was one of my birthdays, and I said, this coming up year, anytime that I get an invitation, I'm always going to say yes. Because sometimes I would say, oh, no, I can't go. And it was because I had to go home and clean. I'm like, for what? So I learned to prioritize and to give myself grace, and to, yeah, just prioritize that cleaning can kind of wait. It's not that big of a deal.
I love that. Cleaning can wait. I like that. No, but
What?
it's true. It's true. I think sometimes that's part of ingrained in our culture, que toca limpiar. Si tienes polvo, little marquita, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna see that. And yeah, just giving yourself that balance. And I think that's really great that you get that head pat in the back, like, hey, I did this. It's okay if that didn't get done. And I
Mm,
think we as women often put so much more pressure on ourselves than, I know my husband tells that to me a lot, that I'm like, I gotta do this. And he's like, just take it easy, one thing at a time. And yeah,
mhm.
you do that really well, kind of balance that.
Yeah, I try. I think probably like 3 years ago, I started to do like the block scheduling. So I kind of write down everything there for the week. So there's certain things that are scheduled, but then I'll also write down, even if I go to the bank, I'll write it down that that's what I did that day. So that's like my, like, and then I think I've talked about it before. Like every year I buy it, and it's always a different color, because I love colors. So I enjoy writing in the book. And then at the end of the week, I kind of get to see what I did for the week. And I feel it makes me feel accomplished. Because maybe I didn't get to everything, but I'm like, dag, I did a lot. Hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a because I again, as women, I think like we keep saying, we don't give ourselves grace. You know, I needed to do this and it didn't get done, and we beat ourselves up instead of saying, you know what, I didn't do it today, but I'll get to it tomorrow because I did these other things. So I think that's
Hmm.
a great reminder to ourselves that I did have a productive week. Maybe I didn't do everything that I wanted to do or everything that I thought that I needed to do, but I made all these other things happen. So
Hmm.
that's wonderful. Great technique on there that we can all copy. So
Yeah.
I might start buying my colorful books too. Um,
Hmm.
um, you mentioned, also how you did things maybe not in the way that we think about it, but and especially now being a single mother raising children and then raising boys, how do you think being an only child and being a woman um, has and then being the mother of boys is impacting the way that you are raising your children? Like, what are you ¿qué le estás inculcando? Like, what are you putting in their heads, to kind of raise them and be, you know, productive and good men?
Yeah. I love that question. Because I'm an only child and because I was raised without my father. So I think that also makes a huge impact, the fact that I have two boys. So I tend to rely a lot on their dad in reference to that manhood stuff, right? And sometimes I may not always agree with the way that he does things, which is that challenge that I had this past week with him. Um, and there's times that I've had to like kind of like put him in check and say, hey, just because this is how you were raised, or like there's other options, right? It's not just your option. There's other ways. I love the fact that I have sons. I think boys are amazing. um, I see them like they're somehow, because in our minds, the stereotype of boys are stronger than girls, right? Like physically stronger. But I always wanted to have a boy first because just in case I had a girl, she would be part of the security team to protect her, to take care of her. So I always wanted to have a boy first. And I think I've my biggest thing with my sons is I want them to be driven, self sufficient, that they don't have to rely on a female or somebody else to be able to do things. There was a book that I read, I think it was called Setting Boundaries or something like that, is by James Townsend. I do remember the author's name. And he kind of talked about when you have sons, daughters, they're borrowed, and the our objective is to that one day they're going to be raised to be, so my boys are going to be somebody's husband, somebody's father, somebody's boss. And initially when I went through this path with them, I wanted their wives to not have the struggles that I had with their dad, right? That was like my initial thought of doing things. But I also want them to be self sufficient. I don't want them to be abused by their wives because they can't do certain things in the household. Like, can you eventually make enough money to pay somebody to cut the grass? But it's also nice that you're able to, that you know how to do it, that you're savvy enough to, even if you don't know how to do it, to YouTube and you can look it up to see how to do that. And then I try to get them to see from my perspective as well, because their dad is very strong-willed as well. And so I try to, a lot of the times, just have conversations with them, constant conversation, especially while when we went through the divorce and stuff like that. I have a really good friend, and she always said it's kind of like the drop from the faucet. You just have to constantly drop. You have to drop information and love and nuggets to your kids constantly. So with my friend, she was raised by her mom, but every time you talk to her, she always says, my dad used to say blah, 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 blah. So it's because the dad always constantly gave that drop to her. So that's kind of what I do with my boys. To be themselves, to be genuine, to be transparent. I always try to, I think I've said this on the show before, that, I give them a platform of being transparent. There's no consequences, there's no punishment. We have these few minutes where you could just say whatever you want to whatever's on your mind. So I want them to eventually, if they're in a bind, for them to feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone and call me. That's my ultimate goal. So I try to give them, yes, I'm strict, especially when it comes to academic stuff, because dad kind of handles like the sports and everything else. But I want us to have a good relationship. And I'm honest with them all the time, all the time. And I give them honesty and I expect the same thing in return. And I try to tell them not to pass judgment on other people, because everybody, at the end of the day, everybody has done the same effed up things. We all have made mistakes, and it's okay. And don't pass judgment on people because they did something. Because at one point in your life, you're going to do it or you already did it.
I love that you said that about the transparency and acknowledging that we've all made those mistakes, because I think sometimes, like for me with my parents, I didn't really get that. It was kind of like my way or the highway. It was a little bit more stern sometimes. And so there wasn't that sense of, you felt like you had to be perfect without knowing what that even is. Like, it's the impossible mission. And so I love that you have that open communication with them. And I think that that's so important, especially with boys too, for them to feel that comfort. Um, and so when you were saying that, it made me think of how more impactful your experience has been with them going to school, as far as like academics, being able to have like all these strategies to help them if you felt that they were struggling with certain classes or they were falling behind us. Like, you were able to have all these tools and resources at your disposal. So when it comes to helping, and this is kind of like I'm asking for my own benefits too, but like, are there any suggestions that you have for parents who can help them, their kids, within academics, and instill that love of learning? Because I feel like that's so important too, that nurtures their future, how they keep learning. And I'm also curious if them seeing you be in this environment where you love academics, you're teaching and you're tutoring other students, if that has added como un cariño o una ganas de aprender, like to follow your footsteps within the education area. It's kind of like a 2-for-1 question.
We all went off for a little bit, right? It just wasn't me.
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
So I think like your Sonic Day is at a pivotal moment where like this is the time to like really like give them that foundation to love and not be afraid of learning. I know that there's a lot of students that come to my facility and they're like, I hate math, right? And then you hear the parents say the same thing, like I was terrible in math. So I usually try to tell people not to say that to their children, even though it's true, but then they start like repeating that to themselves too, and they may one day be really good at it, because math is all about patterns, so it's really not that difficult. It's just the fear that people have put in our brains that math is difficult. And with my children, they just know that they have access to academic assistance. And I think that kids, and I think Nick, that you did a graphic for me one time that said, children do what they see, not what they hear." Um, do you remember? Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow,
So
what memory! I forgot.
yeah, that's always. So it's okay for me to pick up a book and read a book, and maybe it's not a book for my children, but it's just a book for myself. Like this, the lady that I listen to on YouTube all the time, I'll play her in the car, and the kids hate it sometimes. But Joel, especially my youngest one, he'll say, "Oh, that's a good point she just made." So he's actually like listening to it, and I just for them to be themselves, to be honest with you, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like I was having a conversation with my oldest son, because he's 18, so he's been a little bit more distant and kind of doing his own thing. And I reminded him yesterday, and I said, just like make sure that you have a connection with me and your grandmothers, and don't lose that connection, because you don't want to call when you need something or something is wrong. Like you want to be there constantly. So I think it's our job just to kind of like remind them that yes, ideally I would love this for you, but at the end of the day, it's your life. It's just like when kids go to college. A lot of the parents want to say, well, you should go to this college. But yes, they should go to that college, but they should have a large percentage in their decision because they're the ones that are going to live there, not the parents. So I think it's important for us to listen to their voice. It doesn't mean that that's what we're going to do, but I think it's okay to listen to their voice. And in reference to academics, I think we're forever learning, and we can learn in so many ways. It doesn't have to be formal to go and sit in a classroom. Especially our generation today, they learn so much with technology and just YouTube and Netflix and everything that they do. You're constantly learning, informal learning as we know it.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, and I think every day, everything that we go through in life, there's always a lesson to be learned in everything that we do. So that's great. Um, so I mean, we're having open conversations, and I think we are really honest, and transparent when it comes to our lives and our experiences. So
Mhm.
you let me know if I cross that line.
Oh,
But
I like to know something.
you being a mom, a career woman, being divorced and trying to raise a family, you know um with two parents not in the same household. um, what are some of the challenges that you deal with on a regular basis? And I know you touched on some of that. And I was saying, I did put in our chat that I love it is so mature of you, and as a woman. And maybe if you would have been in your 20s, it would have been different. If you would have been going to a situation like this in your 20s, you probably wouldn't react the way that you do. But it is so mature to kind of understand that yes, you're not with their father, but he is their father, and he's an important part of their life. How do you keep that image alive and together, and that presence, and remind your children he might not be in the next room, but he is here, and
Mhm.
how important that is? Can you talk a little bit about like that whole part of your life, or that chemistry? How do you guys make that work?
Look, because I could talk a lot of junk about him. We could do a whole show just about him and all my struggles. But so I had my youngest son when I was 27. So by the time, so by the age of 30, the dad and I, we kind of like broke up, right? Because we were just dating. So we broke up, and I had the opportunity to go. I left when my son was about 4 months. I left Virginia and I went to New Jersey. Um, and then the dad and I was there for about 2 3 years, and then we talked and we said, well, come back to Virginia and let's try and work this relationship out, and stuff like that. So I came back and it didn't work out. I said, I remember I moved July, like September, I was like, this is not working. My initial was, I'm just going to stay in Virginia because it's so important for dad to be with my son. So it wasn't even a thought to go back to New Jersey after I had already came here. Because I think I think about it this way now, but I didn't think about it this way when I was in my early 30s. But I wanted to make sure that my son was with his dad, and I guess because I grew up without mine, so I just knew that that was so important, even if the dad and I weren't together. Um, so we kind of talked about going our separate ways, but then just things worked out, and we got back together. And then later on we bought a house and we got married, and then we had Joelle later. After our divorce, it probably took us a good 2 years because we were like constantly battling, because him and I really come from two different worlds. We were raised different. I was raised without my father. He was raised with his father and his mother. He was the youngest, nothing but boys in the house. When his parents got married, his mom was 15 and the dad was 21. And back in the day, it was normal to do that. but just a very strong-willed father, very dominant, a very, he was just the head of the household, and everything he said was pretty much done. And then I come from a world that was the completely opposite. So when we were no longer together, it was a lot of me being very humble and very submissive to his ways, and giving up a lot of me as well. But it was a process for me, I think, to give him that space to do what he does, because we have sons. If I had a daughter, it would probably be different. And then once those stages came in, at one point we were arguing so much. And we had an easy divorce. Like, we never went to court or anything like that. We kind of did everything in house. But just, it was just the discipline of the kids, the everyday operation of, hey, they ate hamburgers. Oh, they're always eating hamburgers with you. That's not healthy. Why they're not eating vegetables? Little that, if you really think about it, is just petty stuff. Because we have joint custody, and guess what? As long as they're eating and they're not being abused, like, it's fine. It doesn't matter what they eat over there. So we kind of had to go through that. And at one point, I had to check myself, because I had to realize, like, I had to show him love, and not in a romantic way, but just in a co-parenting way. I had to show him love. I had to learn that I can still, like, put my arms around him, um, and talk to him like a human being with respect, even though I was so mad. But I had to learn to do that. And once I did that to him, he started to give it back to me. Um, so that was a life lesson for me, that I had to change my ways in order for our relationship to get better. And sometimes, I think it's been about 4 years now, that in general terms we get along. Sometimes when we have challenges, we just have them, and I just kind of, the sutachan comes in at times, and I just become strong-headed, because I don't fight a lot. Like, I don't argue a lot. So and I tell him all the time, like, I lean on you about 95% of the time. We do basketball how you want to, we do everything the way that you guided. So when I fight that 5%, like, let me win, pretty much is what I'm telling him. Because he's a good dad. He's not perfect, but he's there. Like, he coaches my sons, and he's not the best coach, but he's there. And a lot of kids can't say that.
Oh,
But far from perfect is he.
No,
yeah.
but that is so important, and that has such an impact, a bigger impact in their lives, and I say that for my kids. My I always was angry at my husband because he coached them baseball since they were 5, until they started college, and he was always harder on them because people looking from the outside, they're like, oh, he's playing daddy ball, he has this team so that his
Mm.
kids can play and things like that. So they always criticize him a lot for that. So he was always harder on the kids. Like, you have to be better. You have to, even if you don't hit the home run, you have to be consistent. So you have to, it's okay to hit a single, but you got to hit a single every time you go at bat. I don't expect a home run, but I expect you to hit the ball, do your job, and things like that. So, and our kids are listening and they appreciate that. And, that has an impact on their lives. And I was laughing too because you mentioned about the food. Every time, the kids would come home and, the food will be served, like, they knew who cooked. So if they knew that there was rice and meat and there was a salad with vegetables, mommy cooked. If there was rice and meat, only daddy cooked.
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's just
well.
prioritizing things, and
Mhm.
everything that we do is for the best interest of the kids, and us too, because we want to get along. Like, there's times we argue, and he's like, Viviana, you got it good. I said, well, if I got it good, you got it good too, because we're living the same life. So,
Yeah, yeah,
mm,
that's true. I think that is thank you for that transparency and kind of sharing a lot of that journey. I think that there is beauty in what you shared of, I think, learning lessons for everyone when you are in situations where you feel like someone's being so dominant over you that you almost kind of give in so much and you lose a part of yourself. And instead of you lashing out and, you know, going in a negative way or lashing out on your kids, you found a way to pause and came to this way of giving empathy. I think that that is very
But
much in
I
giving
did lash
empathy.
out though at times, Nick.
You did,
I did lash out, but I was
but you
as
found your
Maddie
way
would
to
say,
get grounded.
yes, that's why I went to therapy. Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had to. Because I had at one point in my life, I had like hit rock bottom in reference to my self esteem and all that stuff, right? In reference to like motherhood, the type of mother, the type of woman that you are. So yeah, like I allowed him or the relationship that we had for me to like hit rock bottom, and I had to like come out of that. Yeah, for sure. So I did lash out. Don't get me so
Yeah.
much.
Well, so that's where I was gonna go with my next question was if you would have, because I think sometimes we don't think about when we give ourselves advice for friends or people who might go through something similar, we don't realize that like we could give ourselves that advice and we don't listen to ourselves, like, oh, you can, do XYZ. But if you would have seen your younger self, what would you tell her as far as just life and business? Like, what was maybe two things that you would tell her? Not necessarily to do different, because I think that you, from what you shared, you wouldn't change things the way they are, because it's really much shaped who you are today, but to empower her or enlighten her, and for your future, like your person now telling your younger person then, but also thinking the future person. It's kind of like the multiverse here, but what would you say?
I would tell her to not, don't put yourself to the side for other people. Love on you without
Love
sacrificing
that.
other people's love, right? So again, finding that balance, standing your ground on certain things that you can't allow other people to take away your womanhood or who you are, your essence, you know. And sometimes you may go through it, but don't stay there too long. So that's what I would have said to Viviana when she was 30.
I think we need to put all of those on a t-shirt for
Yeah,
reminders to ourselves too. It's so true. That is
yeah,
so true.
yeah.
Wow.
I when I went to Colombia, I didn't I got a tattoo when I was there. And it's actually it's like a female, and she's like hugging herself, but she doesn't have a face because the original tattoo I saw would it was like it had like flowers of some sort, but I changed it. It still looks like flowers, but it has like the symbol of Pisces. But she's giving herself a hug, and it's only a silhouette. It's like nothing crazy. um but
Was this just this time that you went to Colombia?
yeah,
You have to send us I want to see it.
yeah, I'll send it to you. Because it's like on my upper chest here, so I don't want to show it.
Yeah.
I want to see too.
But yeah, it's the self love. The self love.
Love that.
Self love can still happen with other people in your world. It's kind of like what Maddie said last week, and I've been saying this to a lot of people, Maddie, about that you can have everything you want, but not just at one time. I said that a lot to a lot of people this week, um, because it's true. You can have everything, but not everything. And I also want, before we go, because I know our time is almost up, but Veronica is online with us, Lily, Rosa Marie, Sandra, Angelica Rivera, other people. My mom said no a los tattoos. She hates tattoos. Like
That
that's one
is
thing
so
I
true.
didn't tell my mom one time. Okay, Maddie, I almost didn't tell her. I think I just went and told her. I was like, look, because she's so against it. She hates them. Yeah.
That's funny because the same thing happened to me with my mom. She's like, "Don't do it." And my first tattoo, it's we my one of my cousins designed a family logo for a family reunion, and then my younger cousins, they all started getting tattoos, about it. And I'm the oldest granddaughter, and they were like, "Maddie, are you gonna get the tattoo, Maddie?" And I'm like, "Yeah, later." And I've been putting it off, and then I told them, I said, "Okay, for my 40th birthday, I'll get the tattoo." And I did, and I kind of made it a little bit unique for
For you.
me. And yeah, so I showed my mom, and she's like, "Oh, it's pretty, but," and then she left it like that. But I was gonna say, again, thank you for your transparency, for sharing, for there's a lot of stuff that you shared with us that that can impact women, can empower women, because sometimes we think, like you said, it's okay to go there, but don't stay there. And I don't think that's something that we hear enough. We think that we got to be strong and we can't cry and we can't be emotional and and that is normal. That is something that we all go through. I don't care if you're a man or a woman or whatever it is. You do break down, and it is okay to kick and scream and throw a tantrum, but then you have to get up and you have to keep going. So thank you for that. And that's a great reminder. And I think something that we need to share with young girls, with young women, with everyone, because we need to hear that, and we need to be reminded of that. Thank you also for letting us know, like, again, like we keep saying, that you can have everything, not all at the same time, but that you can do everything that you set your mind to. That you can be a homeowner, that you can be a mom, that you can have children, that you can raise children together or by yourself, that you can influence and impact other people's life and make a difference. So thank you for sharing all of that and for reminding us that we can do all that. So my last question before we go would be, if you could go back and do things a little bit different, would you, and what would you change?
Um, I wouldn't change a thing, to be honest with you. I wouldn't change a thing. I think if I changed anything, I wouldn't be here with you guys right now. Yeah, even the most painful things that have happened to me in my lifetime, um, I wouldn't change it, because even just recently with my youngest son, he had to be disciplined for something that he did, and I told him, I said, my job is to protect you. My job, your dad's job is for us to protect you and to make sure that you make good decisions. And I said, when I was younger, I was in different situations, and my mom's job was to protect me. So I just want to make sure that this is what we do. Like, one day you will have children, and like, that's why I tell them all the time, like, this is nothing new. Like, this is constant movement, constant learning. And like I said, even those bad moments, I couldn't give you advice on it if I didn't go through it. So no, I wouldn't
Yeah,
change it.
this was awesome. Thank you so much, Viviana, for. I know you're my cousin, but this was really great to hear all these great strategies. I learned new things to kind of be more grounded, not let the Sutta-chan out. Don't unleash the Sutta-chan.
That's
but
a T-shirt for the whole family. Don't unleash the chan. Oh my God, because that joint is strong.
but this was beautiful. This was really great, and Maddie really kind of brought everything together with her perspective. So I just want to say thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. This has
Thank
been
you.
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I was kind of nervous a little bit. I wasn't before the show, but then once we got started, and then after that first question, I was like, oh my gosh. But I don't mind being transparent. I think if we're not transparent, then we just don't learn. Like, what's the purpose of doing what we're doing if we can't show transparency? And again, there's no judgment, because everybody has gone through something
Yeah.
at some point. Uh, Thank you so much, Mark, as well. He's so nice. We're ready for your poem.
Okay, so let's see. So I pulled this one out of the archives. I haven't read it in a little bit, but I think it goes a little bit with what we were talking today. So I wrote this, I think it was like 2015, and it was from a prompt, and the prompt said, expect nothing. That was kind of the prompt, and that's where this poem came from. We come into this world, and the minute we say hello, that's when the grooming begins. Grace the world as beautiful girls, hopes and dreams are fed to create fairy tales in our heads. You are taught to be self-sufficient, to know it all, to wake up all the senses only to learn how to keep them under control. As women, we are taught to give and expect nothing. We are raised to be the backbone, to stand up strong so that men can shine. Inhale so they may exhale. The wisdom and thoughts of our advice, after all, they are the face of our strong society. We struggle to be equals, but when we get close to reaching that point, the same thing that sets us apart leads to sacrifice and ambitions get postponed. You bring children into the world and your role takes a turn. You no longer belong to the world because this little person needs your attention. Then you are torn. How can I be it without giving up me and set the example for him? We are forced to put outside dreams on hold, and the you can have it all phrase is no longer the reality you had imagined. Daddy puts in long hours at work so he can get the VP role. He does it all for the family. But if mommy does the same, she is charged with neglect because the career should never be her first option. We then come to understand creation. God made man, and so that he wouldn't wander alone, he decided to give him a companion. The second time, God put in some thought, and to balance the world, created a creature with the things the first one was lacking. She was created from his side to remind him that's where she exists, not behind or in front, but by him, needing each other to make it work as a cohesive unit in the world to keep it revolving. As women, we are taught to give and expect nothing because every day is a gift and we learn to live out dreams, thought the faces that surround us, to be there when baby boy takes his first step and the first words said by baby girl become priceless. To watch them achieve what no one else believed, but only mom knew it could happen. To have them grow and be able to change the world using your words as guidance. As women, we give and we expect nothing because we receive every time all things happen. Every breath is another chance to be present and recognize that nothing happens without us because women exist in everything.
That was nice. Right on point with what we talked about today. But I thank you, ladies, for the questions. Were great. Great, like self reflection after the show for myself. And we got like a T-shirt or two out of it as well. So that was nice. But thank you to our audience for watching us or listening to us or sharing with other people as well. And again, we're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we will be again next Sunday with another topic. Stay tuned.
Gracias, mujeres. Thank you, everyone.
And we have some like new commercials this time, I believe, in Espanol.
Oh,
She's getting creative with us.
I like.
Encuentra el bosque más cercano en descubreelbosque.org. El bosque, más cerca de lo que crees.
Cuando estaba en crianza temporal, nunca sabía cuándo me iba a tener que mudar, así que siempre tenía mi maleta lista. Y un día me adoptaron. Mis nuevos padres me abrieron sus corazones y su hogar. Ellos me cocinan mi desayuno favorito todas las mañanas. Mis padres me llevan a viajes que jamás pensé podría ir. Me dieron un hogar y una mejor excusa para usar esa maleta. Mis padres no son perfectos, pero son perfectos para mí.
Watch me! Watch me! I got it! Watch me! I got it! Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got soul, and I'm super bad. I got soul, and I'm super bad. Now I got a move that tells me what to do. Sometimes I tease, that tells me what to do. Sometimes I feel so nice, I wanna try myself a few. I got soul, and I'm super bad. I'm love.
Woo!
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be. A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?